All right. So, tech interviews. Anyone listening is probably, familiar with them or dreading them. Everyone talks about those algorithms.
Yeah, the whiteboard coding and the endless leak code grinding. It's like you got to memorize every algorithm ever to like stand a chance.
Right. Feels like the whole game is just memorization, right? But what if I told you, what if there's a different way to think about this whole thing?
Well, that's where this Algo Academy blog post comes in. Why algorithm memorization is overrated in tech interviews.
Oh, catchy title.
It really, I think it kind of changes how we look at these interviews. You'll find their perspective pretty refreshing, I think.
Absolutely. And they start by, acknowledging the reality. We all know about the whiteboard coding, the leak code style questions, data structures, system design.
Oh, and don't forget the behavioral part of the interview.
Oh, of course. Always gonna have that. But then they kind of throw this curveball, right? They suggest that this intense focus on algorithms, especially just memorizing them, maybe isn't the best way to see if someone's going to be a good developer.
Yeah, and what I find interesting is they actually point out this disconnect
Mm-hmm.
between like what you do in the interview and what you actually DO as a software engineer day to day. And if you think about it, how often are you like building some crazy algorithm from scratch at work?
Right, right. I mean, most of the time I'm using libraries, frameworks, making sure the code is, clean, easy to read, debugging, that's a big one, and working with the team, of course.
Exactly.
Mm.
So if these interviews are supposed to figure out if we could do the job, shouldn't they be looking at like the real skills we need?
I completely agree. And the post, it argues that when we put so much emphasis on just memorizing stuff, it can actually trap us, right? We
Mm.
get this shallow understanding of how algorithms actually work. Like, yeah, okay, maybe you can rattle off the steps to, I don't know, a sorting algorithm, but
But do you really get it? Like why it works that way when you should use it over another one?
exactly. It's like you might get through the interview, but then when you hit a real problem on the job,
You're kind of stuck.
totally. And this whole memorization thing, it can reinforce this. What's it
Oh,
called?
like a fixed mindset.
Yes. Yeah, that's it. Like you're either born good at algorithms or you're just,
Doomed.
haha. Yeah, pretty much. But in tech, we all know how important it is to have
A growth mindset.
yes, being able to learn new things, believing you can improve. That's huge.
Totally. And the other thing about this whole memorization focus is companies might miss out on people.
Yeah.
People who maybe aren't like algorithm superstars, but
But they have other strengths. Like they're really adaptable, they learn fast.
they can pick up new tech like that. Which, let's face it, is super important in this industry.
Totally essential. So what are these alternative approaches? What should companies be looking at? The Post highlights a few key areas. They say it's not just about the solution, it's
It's about how you get there, your problem-solving approach.
yes. Can you like break a big problem down into smaller steps? Can you explain how you're thinking, to your teammates, let's say?
Exactly. That's what separates the good devs from the great ones.
Yeah, it's like showing you can think critically, not just, spit out an answer you memorized. And the Post also talks about writing clean code.
Oh, that's a big one. Well-organized, easy to read. Think about it. If someone else had to work with your code, would they, like, thank you for making their life easier?
Or would they be like cursing your name under their breath?
Exactly. Clean code, it shows you understand best practices
Hmm.
and that you can, like, actually work on a team.
Right. It's not just, a solo thing.
Yeah.
Now, for people aiming for, let's say, more senior roles, the Post suggests something else becomes even more important than algorithms.
Oh, yeah. System design
Yeah.
and architecture. Knowing how to build these, like, large-scale complex systems,
Yeah.
that becomes crucial.
Yeah, it's less about knowing, every sorting algorithm. It's more about making smart choices that affect like the whole system.
Thinking big picture, having that architectural mindset.
Exactly. But no matter what level you're at, the Post emphasizes something that I think is as important in tech, and that's
Adaptability and learning. Tech moves so fast.
it does. You got to show you're, eager to learn, that you can pick things up quickly.
This is where, like, your personal projects come in, right?
Yeah.
Side hustles, even open source contributions.
Yeah, it shows you're not just someone who, crams for a test. You're a lifelong learner. You're always growing.
That's what companies want to see.
Absolutely. But
Yeah.
we can't forget the human side of software development, right? There's also
Collaboration
yeah.
and communication.
hmm
I mean, you're rarely working alone.
Right. You got to be able to explain technical stuff clearly, work well with others, give and receive feedback.
It's all part of the job.
Totally. So, I mean, algorithms are important. No one's denying that.
Yeah.
But this post really challenges us to think beyond just memorizing them and focus on all these other skills, right? The skills that actually go into making great software and being, a valuable part of a team.
It's a perspective worth thinking about.
Okay, so we've talked about how there's, more to being a good developer than just those algorithms. But how do we actually change the interview process? Like, how do we get companies to think differently about this?
Well, the Post has some pretty interesting ideas.
Oh, lay 'em on me.
One of the things they suggest is like take-home projects
Oh, yeah.
as part of the interview. So, give people a chance to show what they can do in a more like realistic setting, not just on a whiteboard.
Yeah, I love that. It's more like what you'd actually be doing on the job, right?
Exactly. And
Yeah.
and it lets companies see how you approach a problem. How you structure your code, how you deal with like the inevitable bugs that pop up.
Right, right. It's a way more authentic evaluation than just, watching someone sweat under pressure for an hour.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And another thing they mentioned is pair programming.
Oh, interesting.
As a part of the interview, I mean, it's a way to see not just your technical skills, but like how you communicate, how you collaborate. Can you explain your thought process to someone else? Can you, work together constructively?
Yeah, that's huge EE in a team environment. And it's like, a little sneak peek into what it would actually be like to work with that person.
Exactly. Oh, and they also talk about code review exercises.
Code review, yeah.
I thought that was a good one because code review is like such a big part of the actual development process. You know, being able to read someone else's code, find potential issues, give
Yeah,
feedback.
something we do all the time, right?
Yeah.
So why not make it part of the interview?
Exactly. It shows if someone pays attention to detail, just understand best practices, if they can, communicate clearly with other developers.
Right. It's about more than just, writing code in isolation. Now, for those aiming for like senior roles, the post suggests something else.
Oh, yeah. In-depth system design discussions.
Makes sense. Because as you move up, that ability to design these like scalable, reliable systems, that's what becomes super important, right?
It is. You got to be able to think about the architecture, the data flow, all those like bigger picture things.
It's less about specific algorithms, more about understanding the trade-offs, making smart design choices, anticipating problems before they happen.
It's a whole different level of thinking.
It is. And what I like about all these suggestions is it's moving away from that narrow focus on algorithms and towards like a more
Holistic.
yes, a more holistic view of what it means to be a good developer. And what I like is it benefits everyone, right? Well, candidates, they feel like they're being evaluated fairly. And companies are more likely to, find the right people who will actually thrive in that work environment.
It's a win-win.
Exactly. But even if, the interview process doesn't change overnight, there's one thing every developer can control:
What's that?
their commitment to learning, continuous learning. This is something the Post really emphasized, and it resonated with me. It doesn't matter how you got the job, whether it was through Leak Code or some amazing project you built.
It's what you do after that matters.
Right. You can't just stop learning. In tech, if you're not learning, you're
Falling behind.
big time. You got to stay curious. You got to embrace those challenges, keep adding to your skill set. The Post had some good suggestions for how to do that, actually.
Like what?
Well, one thing is just, staying up to date with what's happening in the industry. Read blogs, articles, listen to podcasts, whatever keeps you in the loop.
Be a lifelong student. Always be
I know,
learning.
exactly. And the Post also talked about building side projects.
Ah, yes. Side projects.
They're a great way to, experiment, play around with new tech, build something you're actually interested in.
And they look good on your resume, too. It shows you're, proactive, you take initiative.
Totally. And don't underestimate the power of open source contributions.
Oh, yeah. Contributing to open source projects, that's a fantastic way to like learn from others, get feedback on your code, work with a whole community of developers.
She's like real world experience, but, on your own terms.
And it shows you're willing to like give back to the community, too.
Absolutely. So even if you aced every algorithm question in the interview, the real journey begins.
When you start the job.
Exactly. That's where that growth mindset, that hunger for knowledge, that commitment to learning, that's what's really going to set you apart.
And that's what will lead to, a long and successful career. Not just in tech, but in anything, really.
Yeah,
Yeah.
couldn't have said it better myself. You know, it's funny as we've been talking about this Algo Academy post. One thing that's really struck me is like their ideas about changing the interview process. It could actually apply to learning in general, not just tech.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Like challenging how we usually think about assessing skills, right?
Hmm.
Putting less emphasis on just memorizing stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Think about it. Standardized tests, quizzes, even those exams we all took in school, right?
Yeah.
They're all about like spitting back facts and figures.
But do they really show if you understand something?
Yeah.
Like, really get it?
That's my point. Like, just because you can memorize, history dates or science formulas.
Doesn't mean you can, like, actually analyze historical trends or design a science experiment.
Right. So what if we like took some inspiration from these tech interview ideas and applied them to other fields? Imagine a history class where instead of just memorizing names and dates.
You're doing something more hands-on.
Right. Yeah, like analyzing, I don't know, primary sources or debating different interpretations of history or even like creating a project that brings, a historical event to life.
Wow, that would actually make history interesting.
Uh-huh. Right. And imagine a science class where, instead of just memorizing formulas, you're actually designing experiments, collecting data, analyzing it, presenting your findings.
Learning by doing.
Exactly. It's about applying the knowledge,
Yeah. Yeah.
developing those problem-solving skills, those critical thinking
As well,
skills.
turning the classroom into a place where you're encouraged to be curious, to be creative.
Yes, not just a memorization machine. This
Yeah.
whole conversation about tech interviews, it's kind of made me think differently about learning in general.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
We need to move beyond just, testing what people can remember and look at like the whole picture, how they think, how they solve problems.
Exactly. It's about unleashing that potential. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the Algo Academy post, I think the main takeaway for me at least is this. Whether you're, prepping for tech interviews or just, going through life, always ask WHY.
Don't just accept things at face value.
Right. Dig deeper, Try to understand the underlying principles, connect the dots.
Look for those aha moments.
Yes. Those are the moments where we really learn and grow.
And that's what it's all about, right?
Absolutely. So thank you for joining us on this exploration of algorithm memorization, tech interviews, and the importance of really understanding things.
And remember, the conversation doesn't end here.
No, not at all. We want to hear from you. Head over to our social media, share your thoughts, your experiences, those aha moments you've had.
Let's keep this conversation going.
Because the best learning, it happens when we share ideas, right? Challenge each other, inspire each other to keep learning and growing.
Couldn't agree more.
So until next time, keep those minds curious, keep those hearts passionate, and keep those learning fires burning.
And we'll see you on the next deep dive.